Hey there, it's Lenny Magill with the GlockStore Performance and Custom Shop right here in San Diego, California. And today we're going to do the installation of sights, front and rear. But I'm going to introduce to you a new sight pusher. Now, the concept behind a sight pusher is that it gently pushes the sights out, the rear sights, and gently pushes them back in. And this is a universal sight pusher. I want to show it to you really quickly because it's a new item. And it's really awesome. So let me put it out here. You guys can take a good look at it. It is made by Vism, and it is probably one of the nicest ones that I've ever seen. If you understand the concept, what we're going to do, and I'll show how to use it here shortly. The concept is you lock your slide into this piece, and then you use this device to rotate the pusher, and that will give you some leverage to push the sights out. So we'll go ahead and look at the sights here, give you an idea of what we're talking about. We're going to push these out, and we're going to install some new night sights. So these being the factory plastic sights, which I recommend that you change almost on every gun you own. They work, but they're not as good as the other sights we offer. We have a whole bunch of sights to offer. These are one that I happen to really like a lot. These are the Trijicon HD XR. Now, the concept between the HR and the XR and the HD, the standard HD, is that the XR has a thinner front post. That's the standard HD. So these sights are really neat because they have a wide rear sight, that's a U-shaped, and the standard ones have a real big fat dot. That's really good for fast target combat shooting, really close in targets, because the dot is so big it just draws your eye to it. And as you get a little older, your eyes need to have that help. So I like them a lot. Now, what happened though is they introduced those, very popular. They're night sights, of course. They have a tritium insert in both the front dot as well as the front post, as well as in the rear notch. It has two small little inserts, and they're glass tubes. Now, the reason I bring you that to your attention is that the glass tubes contain the tritium. And if you're installing these sights onto your slide and you are hammering them on because you have to, they're press fit, you could crack or damage the glass tube, which in turn would make the tritium leak out, and it would not glow in the dark. So the tritium, as you know, as most of you know watching this, is a radioactive material that glows for 10 years. By itself, no batteries required. It's a proven concept. It's been around for a long time. It actually works great because there's no batteries required. It just sits there and glows for 10 years. After 10 years, it's time to change them out once they stop glowing, if you want to have the night sights. And I will say this, that a lot of people say, well, how bright are they? Well, if you go outside and you let your eyes adjust to the darkness, and you then look at those sights, you will see how bright they are. They're significantly bright. They're to the point of like, wow, that's really cool. And they are really cool. That's why we sell a lot of night sights. Because when people see them, they realize, okay, that makes a lot of sense. Because at nighttime, obviously, it's hard to see your sights if they don't have some kind of lighting concept going on. So the lighting concept here is the tritium. The tritium is enclosed in those glass tubes or vials that are embedded in the steel. And as you install the sights, keep that in mind, as you install the sights, if you are there with a hammer and you're hitting on those things and trying to punch them into place to move them over, you could potentially damage the vial. Hence, that's why sight pushers are very popular. Additionally, a sight pusher allows you to exert more pressure and to be more exact in fine-tuning the positioning than a mallet. Okay. Now, the Glock in particular is fairly easy to work with, but some other guns like SIGs in particular, or XDs, which are Springfields in particular, are very difficult to change the sights. Our gunsmiths hate them. It's like, oh God, no, it's going to be a half hour. It's a big process. Literally, you can change the Glock sights in 15 minutes or 10 minutes even, if you have just a little bit of practice. Front and rear. It's a pretty quick job. In fact, that's one of the things we do here at our shop at no charge. You bring your gun in, you buy some sights, we install them for free, okay? Same thing in the mail too. If you say, hey, you know what, I want to buy some sights, I'd like you to install them, send your slide in, we'll go ahead and get your sights and we'll put them together and we'll send the slide back to you. No charge for the installation. So keep that in mind because it's a big service we do, and we sell a lot of sights and we install a lot of sights for free. At the gun shows even, guys come up, hey, can you install these? Sure, give us 10 minutes, come back. So they drop their gun off, we pop them on and do it. It can be done with a mallet if you have some skill. All right, so keep that in mind. The sight pusher does make it easier. Now, for SIGs and those XDs, you really want to have the sight pusher because sometimes they are locked on there and you just can't get enough purchase with your mallet onto the sights to get them out. So hence, the sight pusher, using the power of the screw, allows you to position the slide in the exact spot and then get some pressure on there and work those sights off. And sometimes, if you need to, you can put a tool on this thing. Now, so that's the concept behind a sight pusher. There's a reason for a sight pusher. Like I said, it's really one to protect the glass vials of the tritium in the sights themselves, no matter what sight you have, whether it be the Trijicon or the True Glows or the Ameriglows or whatever. They're all the same concept. In fact, it's all the same tritium because Trijicon has a patent on the tritium, and I believe it's still valid. So most of the sights that you see are going to use Trijicon's tritium. That said, the ability to move this thing in a precise way is much more greatly enhanced with the sight pusher. So let's talk about the sight pusher and why this one is unique and special. First of all, it's pretty beefy. Okay, you can see. I mean, it's a nice aluminum body. It can be bolted into a table. I'm not going to do it here, of course, because this one is one the gunsmiths use. It comes in a really cool package. Let me show it to you real quick. So this is it, and what it comes with is some accessories, and I'll show those to you shortly. There it is, okay? It's pretty neat. I mean, I'm going to tell you, they did a great job on this. The accessories it comes with are the jaws that fit into this piece here and that allow you to hold the slide. These are nylon. Hold the slide without marring the finish. And that's really important. We do sell aluminum, plain aluminum, and I recommend you put some kind of paper shim in there so that you don't have that metal on metal contact, because the last thing you want to do is scratch the finish of your gun as you are changing the sights out. All right, so that's the sight itself, the sight pusher itself. It's pretty cool. Comes in a nice little container or bag. It's pretty awesome. Here's another nice line art drawing of this thing right here. You can get in close and show the whole thing right up in here. It's pretty cool. And look, it's got a U.S. patent number. How about that? So it's a universal rear sight tool or rear sight pusher. Universal is the key because it's going to fit for just about every handgun you have. So let's talk about how to go ahead and install the sights. And I'm going to go ahead and do front and rear because we're here. And this is a gun that I'm actually going to play with. And I do want to put new sights on it. So this is our GSX. And the GSX is the frame that is the full-size frame that accepts the compact or 19 upper. So it's a 17 frame with a 19 upper. It's pretty awesome. And you can also do it in 40 caliber as well. 22 frame, 23 upper. So really you get the full-size grip with the compact slide. It's an awesome piece. Now, so first things we always want to do is make sure the gun's unloaded. Now I know this gun's unloaded, but when I'm going to work on it, I'm going to hand it around or toss it, or even demonstrate, I'm going to make sure it's unloaded. So I'm going to go ahead and drop the magazine. The magazine's empty, right? Okay, that's a good sign, right? I'm going to go ahead and pull the slide back and notice that my finger's off the trigger. Okay, and it's always off the trigger because I'm not going to shoot the gun. So this is just a good habit to have your finger rest up there. It's interesting when we go to the shows, you always can tell the people who are kind of new to guns because as soon as they grab the gun, their finger's on the trigger. And you can always tell the guys who know what they're doing because as soon as they grab the gun, they get their fingers off the trigger. And even at the shows, even though the gun's been passed around a little bit, they will still double check it, make sure it's empty, pull the trigger in a safe direction. And I recommend you do the same thing. So every time you pick a gun up, fingers off the trigger. If you're not going to shoot and you're thinking, okay, I'm not at a range, and but it's your responsibility to make sure the gun's empty. Pull the slide back, double check in the chamber, let the slide go in a forward motion, and then keeping the gun pointed in a safe direction, pull the trigger. Now we know we have an empty gun. Now here's the other thing about this particular process. I, of course, have a workbench here. There's no ammunition in this room. There's no ammunition on this table. There's no ammunition in this room. These magazines aren't loaded. I cannot have an accidental discharge in this room. There's people out here watching. There's people, on camera. The last thing I want to do is have an accidental discharge, okay? And so I have a rule. There's no ammunition in this room. And, it's kind of a good thing. If you're doing work on guns, make sure you have no ammunition on your table. And there's the safety talk. All right, now let's go ahead and do the disassembly. This gun disassembles the same as any Glock. You pull the slide back just a little bit, disengaging the slide lock lever, hands on both sides, fingers on both sides, should I say, and we're gonna go ahead and pull down on the slide lock or take down. It's spring loaded, pull it down, hold it down, then let the slide go and just kind of forward go. And keeping your, a grip on the slide because you don't want it to fall off and hit the floor because that could be dangerous. Dangerous in the sense that it could dent or crack the nose ring, which would be a problem. You don't want that to happen. I've seen it happen. This is the lower, this is the upper. We're working on the upper, so I'm just gonna put the lower away over there. Magazine and just get it out of the way. And this is the upper. Now we're gonna go ahead and do a simple disassembly on this, taking the recoil guide rod out, pushing forward on the spring, it just lifts straight out. That's a captured plastic guide rod. This is a factory slide that we just started playing with, and like I said, I'm gonna start building it up over here. Barrel just lifts out with my finger, comes straight out. So what we're gonna do, and that's about all I have to do. I don't have to take anything else apart. I just wanna get those out of the way. I could leave them in there, but it's a little bit easier to deal with a sight pusher without them. We're gonna go ahead and change the rear sights, and I'm also gonna change the front sight. To change the front sight, I need a special tool. If we're looking inside here, and you get in really, really close, you're gonna see that little nut up there. It's a hexagonal nut, and there it is right there. Let me get my pointer, and I'll point it out to you. It's right there. That guy right there. So that's very difficult to engage with anything except a front sight tool. And that's what this is right here. See the shape of that? And see how it's a flat piece that's gonna allow me to go right over top of that little screw back there. Now, I've tried it with needle nose pliers. I've tried it with my finger. There's no way to really operate that thing unless you have one of these. We sell a variety of these. There's a whole bunch of them available. I like this one a lot. We've sold it for many, many years. It's like $20. It's simple. It's got a punch on it, which is kind of useful, but it's got a nice knurled grip here. The way I'm going to operate this is I'm going to stick that head directly on top of that screw, and it just goes in and it'll lock in place once you find it, okay? And so let's see if I can do that real quick. There you go. So I've got it now. I'm just going to turn it straight out, and it's relatively easy. In the old days, in the early days of Glock, they actually had these as a press fit. It's just a piece of plastic that fit into the oval hole, which you'll see here. We all found that that didn't work great after a little bit of intense shooting. Once the slide started to heat up, and once you really shot a whole lot, those sights tended to fly away. So hence, they came up with this new system, which is a screw. There's that flathead screw. Let me show it to you what it looks like here. Okay, I have it bent a little bit. I'll just stand it straight up. But there it is. So that's the flathead screw. Let me take it out. It's a tiny little piece. And you can imagine that we sell a lot of these tiny little pieces. Okay, so that's what that looks like. And I'm gonna put that down right here, just so I don't lose it. And I'm gonna take my front sight out. Now the front sight is still usable. Here's what it looks like inside. See the hole? It's just a piece of plastic with a hole in it. It's actually pretty good. The white piece is the entire front sight. So I'm gonna just pop it out now with this punch. Boom, just like that. And there is the front sight. Let me show you what that looks like. And then I'm gonna do what I recommend you do. So there's the front sight, and there's the screw. And right now, before I do anything else, I'm gonna put that screw into the front sight so I don't lose it. Because if it gets off this table, it's never to be found. Just a couple turns just to make sure that it doesn't disappear. And there's the whole unit. Now that's usable, obviously, so I would save that for later on if I ever wanted to go back to the factory site. or if something happened to the other one or whatever. So it's nice to have. Now we're going to take the rear sight off as well. And we're going to use the pusher. I will tell you, I could do it with this punch or this mallet and a punch on there or whatever. But I want to demonstrate the pusher because the pusher is really cool and it will give you much more latitude, especially when you're putting the sights on. Because again, what happens is you're putting the sights on and you're putting them on, you're really eyeballing them. People always say, well, how do you know you're centered them? Well, you're really just eyeballing it. And this gives you the ability to be precise, whereas the punch, you're punching them one, punching them one, punching them one. I was saying punch them too much. Then you have to turn around and punch it again, it's too much. And you're kind of going back and forth and trying to make it exact. That's where the sight pusher makes it easy. Plus, like I said, if it's not a Glock, if it's another gun, you really almost absolutely need a sight pusher. Because it's just too much, too hard to remove them. Now, let's look at how this is set up here real quick. There's an arrow here that says slide that way, okay? So that means I'm gonna be putting the slide into the device like so. With that arrow, I'm pointing the muzzle end down, muzzle forward, okay? That's what it says. So it has a couple different ways to adjust it. I'm gonna pull this, is the down, and let's see if I can get you a little bit more light on this thing here. Come out here. Let's see here, it's dark, oh well. Let's see if I can pick it up here. Okay, good, yeah. And then of course these guys will come back out a little bit. This will come back out a little bit. I do want to bring your attention again to the plastic or Delrin inserts that they have. These are really important because they allow you to crank down on the slide without scratching the finish. That's really important. The last thing you want to do is beat this thing up. The other thing is this whole floor kind of raises and lowers, which I think is a great idea. So our objective is to capture the slide in a perfect spot so that the pushers can actually push this out. So here it goes. I'm going to put it into the piece and we're going to eyeball it here, and I know that it looks like I got to come up a little bit. And that looks good. And now I'm just going to tighten these down a little bit here. And you want to be even on both sides because you do need to have some clearance from either side, so that when the pusher goes over, it can actually, push it out as far as possible. Okay, and it looks like I need to come up a little bit more. So that is okay. I'll just loosen these guys up just a little bit and come up a little bit more. There we go. Okay. Yeah, it looks good right like that so far. Now, what I really like about this particular piece is this front leveler. So there's really no motion on the sight, so it doesn't move like so. So I'm going to crank that one down. Crank that one down a little bit. Crank this guy down a little bit. And, okay, so here's a good representation of what I've got. Now, we want to make sure that the jaws of this device do not intersect with the slide. It looks like it's a little tight for my comfort. I'm going to just lower it a little bit because I don't want to scratch on the top with these metal jaws here. So I think I'm so close that, like I said, I want to just loosen them up a little bit and drop it down just a tad, just a little bit. And that's the nice thing about this particular animal. It allows me to move in small increments. I guess I got to loosen that a little bit. There we go. That's better. Let me come back up just one step here, and I'll show you what I've got now. That's better. right, that looks much better. Let's go and look at that. So you can see that, I'm going to clear the slide. And so now, once they're all locked in, I'm going to go ahead and push it out here. And again, you can bolt this to your table, which is not a bad idea, and then just crank it. And let's see if you can, I don't know if you can see from the side here or not. No, it's going to be blocked. So I'll come over here, and you can see it from here. I'll do it left-handed. Oh, wrong way. Lefty. All right, so I'm just pushing the sight straight out. And what's nice about this particular method is that you also can preserve the rear sight for future use. There you go. So now, basically, she's out of there. And that's your rear sight. So like I said, what's really nice about the sight pusher, it allows you to manipulate the sights without dinging them up with a mallet, especially the plastic sights. Because oftentimes when we're yanking them out with a mallet, not only do we mar the finish, but we also rip off this little steel or metal insert here, which is, kind of gives it its flexibility to get into the dovetail and then, kind of spring out and kind of hold it there. So when you take them off with a mallet, oftentimes they're unusable. When you use a sight pusher properly, oftentimes it is, meant for another day. So that said, I'm going to leave this thing basically right where it's at as far as the rear part, and go ahead and loosen the sides up. And loosen this one up here, and bring my slide right out. So there we have it. Looking good, beautiful. So there's my dovetail, and I'm ready to go ahead and get it into play. So now, let's go ahead and bring out my new sights. Now again, I like the Trijicon a lot. The Trijicon, of course, is the big name in the industry because they've got a lot of military contracts. Anybody who's in the military, who's been around for a while, has seen the Trijicon sights on their M4s or whatever. They're super popular, great company, great products. Really, they make something that is really top of the line. So you can't go wrong with Trijicon. They're expensive. Okay, they're more expensive than most of the other manufacturers. However, they are definitely worth it. This is that, like I mentioned, the HD concept. I've got them available in both a yellow or a bright yellow insert, which is kind of neat, and they also have an orange one. And then here is the rear sight. And the rear sight has the tritium inserts here. Now, what's interesting is on camera, they look pretty dull. But it's almost designed to be that way because what the concept is you want to draw your eye to the front sight. So the sight picture is going to be kind of like that. So at nighttime, they certainly do brighten up. But during the day, they're really designed to have your focus on the front sight. And that's one of the reasons I like these a lot. And the XR, which stands for extended range, has a thinner post, which I kind of talked about a little bit. And because it has a thinner post, it will give you better accuracy at longer distances. The smaller the sight, the better the accuracy. So all the bullseye shooters know that. In fact, anybody shooting in 1911 back in the old bullseye days would have the thinnest sight possible because it would give you that pinpoint accuracy. So this is a little different concept, this being more combat, fast style shooting. It's not bullseye, it's let's shoot multiple shots at multiple targets as fast as possible. These are designed to take your eye right to the front sight and let you shoot really fast and go to the next target and shoot really fast. And they work really, really good. Okay, now, so it's time to go ahead and install the front sight. And this screw is super tiny. And of course, the the front sight has an oval shape, as we discussed, and it's going to marry itself into the oval shape in the slide. Now, keep in mind when you put this in here, it's just going to kind of rest in there, so it will fall out if you turn it over. So what we're going to want to do is get it in there, and do observe one other thing too. It's kind of designed to marry itself in the right spot, or lock itself, or orientate itself in a true situation, but it will have a little bit of play. And there's no other way to do this except to eyeball it that it is straight. You could put a leveler on there or something like that, or some other way, but when you start screwing it on, the small screw, make sure that before you crank it all the way down, that the front sight is straight. And every once in a while, someone comes in here and they have their front sight kind of crooked a little bit, and they say, hey, my gun's not shooting right. And we go, well, let's see what we can do about that. So we usually fix it for them. And because we do install the sights here at no charge, and we do help people with their Glocks at no charge as well. All right, so I've got the front sight rested in that hole. Now, as I told you, we do sell a whole bunch of front sight pushers. And this is one that's really cool because it's called a 4-in-1 tool. And check this out. This one is a little switchblade. How cool is that, huh? This is the one that has the magnetic piece inside of the wrench itself. And that allows us to kind of place that front screw in there and get it set in place, and then it will stay in. It won't come out. So that gives me a whole lot more flexibility in marrying this up with the front sight itself. We, of course, want to use Loctite. Loctite is really, really important because it will allow us to lock the screw in there, and it won't vibrate out. Now, I will say this to you. If you do not use Loctite, you will probably lose your front sight when you're shooting, without a doubt. Okay, it's just, that's what happens. So you have to use some type of Loctite. I've got the 262 here. This is the red Loctite. There's also a blue Loctite. Any type of Loctite would be better than none. If you don't use Loctite, you're really going to, at some point, that's going to vibrate loose, and the front sight will fly away as you shoot, and you'll realize, oh, what happened? And you'll never find it, because that's happened to me, as well as a whole bunch of other people. So Loctite is really, really important. Now, the thing about Loctite is that, one, it's got to be shaken, not stirred, shaken, because all those chemicals kind of separate a little bit, so we want to get them mixed together so they actually, work better. The other thing about Loctite is you got to keep the cap on. And, it's a big pet peeve of mine because, I go through the shop and we've got several stations where people are doing assembly with Loctite, and often I see the cap off. Even if you just put the top back on, it's going to help prevent some of that chemicals from boiling away. And what happens is the good stuff that actually, interacts with the goo makes its way to the top, and then it evaporates, and then a month later you have a whole half a bottle of Loctite that's no good. So keep the top on, and also make sure that you shake it. Now, how to apply Loctite? It's just a little dab on the threads themselves. And that's really it. I mean, it's just a dot. You don't have to slather it there. There you go. That's going to find itself all the way around. That's perfect. And the top goes back on. Okay. Now again, this magnetic tip makes a big difference, so I'm going to put my finger over top of the sight, and I've got to find that hole, and I think I have it here. I believe that's a lot of screws there. It's in there. Okay, now it's finger tight right now. I'll come back out and look at it. Now, one of the things you have to be aware of is that the light will throw a shadow on this thing, and it will throw you off a little bit. So there you go. So make sure you look at it in a couple of different ways, and you don't let that light interfere with your judgment. Is it straight or not? Now I'm going to hold it down, and I'm going to crank on this screw a little bit tighter. There we go. Okay, that's pretty easy. If you have the right tool, makes it a lot easier, okay? The magnetic tip on this 4-in-1 tool, and again, I'll just show you all four. There's a punch. Over here, we've got a couple different items. Let's see where they're at here. Do I have to put them down or what? I guess I gotta put one in here to make the other one come out. I have a little Allen screw, and let's get rid of this guy here. And then there's just a little flathead. It's a pretty handy little device. Also, you know, great price point, not really expensive. This is 4-in-1 Glock tool. Here we go. Okay, so that's that. Rear sight pusher, which is what this video is really all about. All right, so take our rear sight, and I can start this by hand. Now, in the gunsmithing world, and I've been around for a long, long time, and I've interviewed a bunch of gunsmiths, it appears they always like to do things from the left side out, right side in. I'm not sure it really makes a difference with the Glock. Some guns it does make a difference, the way they design the pins and the way they design the holes. But for this particular application, I don't really think it matters. However, I'm going to maintain that same thing. I punched it out from the left to the right, and I'm going to put it back in from the right to the left. Okay, so I'm just going to kind of center it up, make sure it's facing the right direction, and just get it into there, and then just push it in a little bit as far as I can by hand. Okay? Now, I could take a mallet to this thing, and one of the things I want to caution you is if you are going to use a mallet, do not rest it on a table and pop it in like this, because that will induce too much vibration, and that's where you will tend to disrupt or break or crack those tritium vials we talked about earlier. If you need to do it with a mallet, you don't have a sight pusher, you can actually do it out here by hand, keeping your hand free so that you don't have as much of that vibration going into here, and the hand kind of frees up a little bit, if you see the concept. I did a whole video on that, where you hit it and it kind of moves a little bit, and you're just punching it in. However, we're going to show you how to use a sight pusher. I'll show you one step here. So we're going to use the nylon head, and we would just hit it just like that, and just let my hand come back. And I hit it several times. Now, it's hard, okay, because it's a real press fit, and this is steel on steel. But we're going to use the sight pusher itself here. So let's go ahead and get ourselves positioned in here so that I can get this thing set up here. Let's go ahead and come back this way, I guess. Yeah, that's not going to work like that, is it? I got to raise this one up. And see if I can get this into the right spot. Okay. All right. There we go. Let me raise this one up a little bit. One thing I like about this, one thing I really like about this tool is that you have a lot of precise measurements. So just enough to grab hold of that slide, and enough to grab hold of the actual sight without interfering with the slide itself. Actually scraping the slide. So I've got that cranked down, I've got that one cranked, I've got that one cranked. All right, here's what it looks like. Now I'm going to go ahead and push this over this way. So this piece is going to come there. So let's go ahead and I'll get it started here for us here. Here it comes. Okay, so we're going to grab hold of this side. Now it's going to take a little bit of muscle here. So, and again, this would be easier if I had it locked onto the table, but I don't. So I have to give it a little bit of muscle with my left hand, no less. Huh? Okay, this is, like I said, it's a little bit of pressure, but you can see it's moving, right? So let me go ahead and come back over here and do it right-handed so I don't strain myself too much. So you could put a wrench on here, which is not a bad idea for a little bit more leverage. Or you can just kind of muscle it like I'm doing here by hand. Here's the progress so far. Well, we're a little bit more than halfway done. Okay. And like I said, if you have this bolted to your table and put a tool on here, it'd be a lot easier and go a lot faster. All right, let's go ahead and see where we're at. Okay, I'm pretty close. Okay, looks pretty good, right? So let me eyeball it here and make sure I'm comfortable before I take it out. Now, one of the things you can do is look at each side of the dovetail and see how much room you have on each side of the dovetail. It looks like I've got, I don't know if you'll be able to see it, but if you look in here, I'll point it out for you. This side of the dovetail, I've got a little bit more light, or should I say room, and I guess you're not going to be able to see that well because you can't get some light in there, than I do over here. So I think I need to push it over a little bit, but keep in mind it's just half, because I push it over, I make more room on that side. So I want to give myself just another one crank there and see what that does. And that looks pretty darn good. Just like that. It does. Okay. Let me take it out and we'll see what it looks like. So, first things first, we'll go ahead and remove the top guy. Let me get these guys straightened up a little bit here. Come back a little bit, take some pressure off of that. There we go. There we go. Okay. Looks pretty good. So let's look in here real quick. See if I can straighten it up and give you a look at this. What I'm trying to see is the space right here compared to the space right over here. And I could almost take a measurement there, just with a little feeler gauge type situation, and see how far it goes in. And I think it's pretty darn good. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with the way it looks. On both angles, I'm looking at everything, looking at the front here. Now, you could always, like I said, measure it too. You could come in here and take a, see if these are going to work. And they're not, but you could take a measurement in here like so, and come down, oops, come up here and see how far it sticks in there, and then do the same thing on the other side. So I think we're pretty darn close. And there's really, I mean, again, it comes down to just looking at them and seeing it. And I've got some shadows in here which are a little deceiving. If anything, I think I've got a little too much room right here on this side. So I'm gonna just crank it back just a little bit. All right, it's very, very small. I'm talking a tiny, tiny amount of room, but again, it looks like it's just a little too much. So I'm gonna do one more pass on this, put it back in the spot, tighten these guys up. Remember, what I want to do is I want to move it back now. So I moved it this way. I want to move it back just a little bit more. Let's see how we're doing here. Okay. Okay, everything's tight. And I'm going to bring it back just a Just a smidge. I wish I could see a little bit more from this perspective, because it's a little trial and error. I'm going to take it out. I think I did too much that time, so yeah, I did. All right, here we go. This should be it. All right, here we go. Oh my, well, again, yeah, just like I said, I thought I went too much, and I did. So here's a good thing to look at. So you'll see, this is a pretty good observation. That piece right there, that little piece, is smaller than that piece right there now. So I just came over too much. See that ledge? And see that ledge? Just a little bit, I'm talking 1/16 of an inch back. So we're close. We're close. It's one of those things where you just have to eyeball it. There's really no perfect way to do, but the nice thing about this tool is that it gives you the ability to just do micro adjustments. So here we go, just a little bit, just to crank it. That should be it. And if that's not it, we'll just do a little bit more. All right, one last step I'm going to do, a little bit more. My goodness. Sorry it's taking so long. But you got to do it right, and you do it right the first time, and then it will last for a long time. All right, that's it. Just like I thought it would be. Perfect. Okay. There we have it. So that's the sight installation using this new sight pusher. It's pretty awesome. You know, it's really great to have great tools. This is amazingly low priced for what you get. This will work on just about any gun you can imagine. It's a universal sight pusher. Works great on Glocks, but it's going to work on your SIGs, your 1911s, your XDs, you know, your Taurus. You just go right down the list, and it's got different size jaws for those different guns. Great little package, great price point, great value. Works tremendous. Gives you something to do with your own sights, and it makes a lot of sense to have a tool like this in your toolbox. So we've got them here at the GlockStore. I'm Lenny Magill. This, of course, is the GlockStore Performance and Custom Shop here in San Diego. We do install sights for free, and we do sell sight pushers. So whichever direction you want to go, we're here to help you. Thanks for watching.